Her Excellency Lillian Chatterjee of the High Commission of Canada to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Hugo Blanco, UNDP Deputy Resident Representative, Juana Sotomayor, UN Human Rights Advisor, Didier Trebuch, UN Resident Coordinator, Ambassador Wasiluska of the EU, members of the diplomatic community, Ronnie Yearwood, Democratic Labour Party President, representatives from the HIV/AIDS Commission, members of the press, Equals members, all stakeholders, good day. My name is Adaro Daniel, and I am the treasurer at Equals Barbados. And today, I have the honor of being your master of ceremonies for today's proceedings in commemoration of International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, Biphobia, or known as IDAHOBIT. I wish to give a warm welcome to each of you, whether you're joining us virtually or those of you who gave us the honor to be in your presence. We're so thankful that you're able to take the time to engage with the dialogue and have this time today. Since 2018, we have had support from our friends at the Canadian High Commission, Bridgetown, and the United Nations Development Program through their Being LGBT in the Caribbean project funded by the USAID to facilitate our annual IDAHOB event. Today, we have joined with these partners to facilitate this evening's panel discussion, which is aimed to highlight the experience of LGBTQI community members and their experience prior to the HIV pandemic. Many hands make light work. Therefore, we immensely hope that through the discussion with the panelists, we are able to inspire more to join us as we fight for further legislative change and freedoms, such as the constitutional reform and the provisions of additional safe spaces for LGBTQI demographics. Through existing partnerships, we have already been able to achieve a number of milestones. These include Employment's Provision of Discrimination Act amendment that was done in 2020, the inclusion of sexual orientation in the new Barbados Charter, and the repeal of the Buggery Law in December 2022. I think that deserves a round of applause. Yes. Nonetheless, the battle is not over, and the fight against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia seem to now begin, especially due to the rhetoric of the anti-gender movement. Therefore, I invite you to sit back and lend your ear as our community shares their truth and gives an insight into the experiences of many who may not be heard. Thank you once again, and I hope you're inspired. Bienvenido, bienvenue, and welcome to all. So starting off our proceedings, we're going to have a quick video presentation by Mr. Didier Trebuch of the UN Resident Coordinators. And he's going to join us by a video presentation.
Friends, partners, and colleagues, good evening. This is from Antigua and Barbuda that I wanted to extend to all of you a warm welcome to the special event observing the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. Today, we are gathered to celebrate diversity, promote equality, and reaffirm our commitments to the fundamental rights of the LGBTI+ community. So a special welcome to the committed LGBTI+ community, and to our partners, the Canadian High Commission, and of course, Equals Barbados, who have made this event possible alongside the UN and particularly UNDP. This 17th of May marks a global moment where we come together to raise awareness and stand against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. It's a day to reflect on the challenges faced by the LGBTI+ community and to celebrate the progress we've made so far. But it's also a call to action, a reminder that there is still a lot of work to be done. Each and every one of us has a role to play in creating a world where all individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity, can live free from discrimination and violence. For example, by raising awareness to break stereotypes and build bridges, or by standing up for human rights, and finally by promoting inclusivity and diversity. So my friends, thanks so much for being part of this discussion. Let's stand together as allies and advocate to promote the values of acceptance, love, and equality. Wishing you a great discussion today.
I'm not sure I should be the first person speaking on the podium, but let me take the opportunity to thank you for joining us to celebrate the International Day Against Homophobia and Biphobia in this time discussion. Thank you, High Commissioner, colleagues. UNDP, why are we part of this conversation? We've been working with the LGBTI communities for a few years, thanks to the support from USAID, Canada, Youth Champion, and especially the communities and the NGOs and the organizations. There is a lot of work to do. We have heard there is some progress, but I think these are small steps towards a long and important objective. UNDP, we are committed to leaving no one behind, part of the UN agenda. And obviously, we really believe that no one should be discriminated for his or her sexual orientation or gender identity, or have fear or being disrespect. And that's something in the Caribbean we feel there is need for more work. We are committed to continue working with the civil society organizations, with the communities, with institutions, with the different countries, so every individual can be respected and afford the same and equal rights. We must advocate for a society where every person is free to be themselves, to love whoever they choose to love, and to live a free life without fear, without discrimination or prejudice. Last thing I'd like to say, this is something we have to do together. This is a big fight, and we have to come together, institutions, communities, societies, and different partners. We must advocate for a life where everybody can live with dignity and freedom of discrimination. Thanks for joining today. Looking forward to the conversation, and thanks also to our partners, to Equals Butterfly, to all the institutions for the long journey we have started some time ago, but we look forward to continue.
So we're gonna finish off our video presentations with a quick word from Ciro Celberto, Ambassador of Argentina.
It is an honor for the Embassy of Argentina to have been invited to be part of the celebration of the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia. Human rights are inherent to all human beings, and these rights have to be guaranteed for every person. Many battles have been fought in search of equality, and on this day, May the 17th, we have to focus our attention on the rights of people regardless of gender or sexual orientation. We all have to say it loud and clear. Any form of discrimination based on gender or sexual orientation is a breach of human rights, and it is through education that we will be protecting them. Argentina is committed to the protection of human rights. Prejudice and hate crimes violate the principle of life and freedom. Argentina has been long working in all levels of government in a cross-cutting policy of gender and diversity, and to address structural inequalities and discrimination based on sexual orientation or sexual identity. After an extensive campaign that started in the 1990s, Argentina became the first country in Latin America to recognize same-sex marriage in 2010, when Congress approved a new article in the Civil Code which reads, "Marriage shall have the same requirements and effects regardless of whether the parties are of the same or different sex." On 2012, Congress passed the Right of People to Their Gender Identity Law that recognizes the right of people to be registered in their national ID according to their gender identity. It guarantees medical treatment related to the adoption of their gender expression, and it establishes that all people, especially children and teens, can choose to use a first name different from the one stated in their national ID. And, upon their request, they shall be called by this adopted first name in both the public and private sectors. On 2021, Argentina passed a law on the promotion of access to formal employment for transvestites, transsexuals, and transgender persons, an affirmative action that establishes that the national public sector must reserve at least 1% of its working position for them. The law promotes effective inclusion through education. It establishes tax incentives for employers who hire workers from the transvestite community, and grants that applicants who have not completed their high school education will be guaranteed access to employment on the condition that they can complete their studies. On the multilateral level, Argentina supports resolutions of the Human Rights Council and forms part of a different global and regional fora, such as the LGBTQ+ core group of the United Nations, to guarantee universal respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, including the community, and always seeking for a common ground and engaging in a spirit of open, respectful, and constructive dialogue and cooperation within the international community. Thank you very much for your attention.
I will go ahead and invite Ambassador Wojciechowska, the EU Ambassador for Barbados, to speak next.
Thank you very much. Polish names are always a bit of a challenge, but at least they bring a smile on people's faces. I'm very happy to be here, and I just want to reflect on a couple of things. I'll be very short because I think Canadian High Commissioner and the panelists are much more interesting than my speech, which will more or less repeat what everybody else has to say. We all stand for human rights, for equality, for non-discrimination. These are such basic values for us that really direct everything that we do, that I almost feel like we don't need to elaborate why we're here and why we stand for equality and non-discrimination. But I just wanted to reflect on a couple of things. Why May 17th? Because we forget sometimes. Every year it comes around. But it's on May 17th that World Health Organization in 1990 decided to declassify homosexuality as a mental disorder. 43 years after Declaration for Human Rights was adopted. And what does the Declaration of Human Rights say? That we're all born equal. And yet this was considered a mental disorder until 1990. It's shocking to me to stop and reflect on that. And it's important to think about it because this year we will be celebrating 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it took us 43 years to decide that we were not all equal. And I grew up in a communist Poland, and we always said we're all equal, except that some people are more equal than others. And I think that's a good phrase that could have been used until 1990. So we've come a long way since then, and I think the commitment of various international organizations and bilateral embassies and EU, I think is known, and I don't need to repeat what we do and how we do and list all the projects. There's plenty to be done, but I have to also salute the organizations in the region, because majority of the progress has been achieved by civil society organizations here, and we support them, and we can support them as much as we can, but it's been driven from inside. And we have to particularly celebrate the last 12 months, where steady progress in the Caribbean has been remarkable, right? So court rulings in Antigua and Barbuda, July 22nd. St. Kitts and Nevis, August 22nd. Barbados, December 22nd. And they all declared that anti-buggery laws were unconstitutional and marked a major development in the decriminalization of same-gender relations and tribe identity. So we support, but that's been driven from inside. So I salute all of those that we support and who have driven this process here, because the change has to always come from the inside, and we can partner, but we cannot drive those changes. So these rulings have been historical, and I hope they will continue to have a ripple effect across the region. And we, as donors, and the European Union is amongst that group, we will continue to support, and we will continue to speak against discrimination and for equality. We will have a new regional program that we will announce around our EU CELAC Summit, which will happen in July this year in Brussels. There will be 8 countries that will benefit from a program that will aim at strengthening judicial sectors, and of course we hope that this will also benefit the LGBTIQ plus community from the improved access to justice and so on. So much remains to be done, but I think we need to stop and reflect. 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that is supposed to guarantee basic rights to every human being around the earth, and we're still fighting for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Wasiluska. All right, so we will go ahead and I will invite Her Excellency Lily Chatterjee from the High Commission of Canada to Barbados and Eastern Caribbean to give her presentation.
Thank you. I'm short, so this always happens to me. That's fine. Okay, thank you, Daryl. All protocols observed. Good evening, bonsoir. Oh, that's nice. I'm honored to be with all of you today as we mark the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia with Equals Barbados and the United Nations Development Program here at UN House. It's hard to believe, but it's the truth. This is the first time I've been at UN House since I've been here. Canada's collaboration with Equals goes back many years, having supported the organization's IDAHOBIT events since 2018 when they first launched locally. However, our advocacy initiatives with Equals and other Barbadian NGOs go beyond commemorative occasions like this one. Human rights are a value that Canadians hold at their core. The protection and promotion of human rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex people is a priority for Canada, both at home and abroad. It is a central component of both Canada's feminist foreign policy and of feminist international assistance policy, which takes a human rights-based approach. Simply put, we believe that the human rights of all persons are universal and indivisible, and that LGBTQI+ rights are human rights. Everyone should enjoy the same fundamental human rights, regardless of their sexual orientation and their gender identity and expression. In the words of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, everyone deserves to live free of stigma, persecution, and discrimination no matter who they are or whom they love. In Canada, these principles are enshrined both at the federal and provincial levels through the Canadian Human Rights Act, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and in provincial human rights legislation. Within recent years, the Government of Canada has increased statutory protections for members of the Canadian LGBTQI+ community, including transgender and other gender diverse persons. In 2017, we passed legislation explicitly prohibiting any discrimination, hate propaganda, or hate crime against Canadians that is based on their gender identity or expression. Last year, we introduced legislation banning so-called conversion therapy, making it a crime to provide or promote services intended to change or repress a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. Additionally, Health Canada lifted a ban on blood donations from men who have sex with men. Canada is also proud to champion human rights at a number of multilateral fora, including the Equal Rights Coalition, the Organization of American States, and the United Nations. Just last week, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Mélanie Joly, announced Canada's candidacy for a seat in the UN Human Rights Council for the 2028 to 2030 term, in the hopes of working for a better tomorrow for everyone, not just some. Canada acknowledges that its record with inclusion is imperfect. However, our government continues to work to address its own challenges and take the necessary action to remedy past wrongs. Canada's progress, while slow at times, is the result of relentless activism by members of the LGBTQI+ community and their allies across many generations. It is important to engage those individuals whose experiences shape the movement's current context. This evening's panel discussion is an excellent opportunity for us as advocates and partners to learn from some of these human rights defenders and consider ways that we can collectively build upon their efforts and achievements. Barbados has made several positive advancements towards inclusion in recent years. December's landmark oral judgment decriminalizing same-sex activity between consenting adults is a massive victory for human rights in Barbados and an example to other Caribbean countries which have similar cases before their highest courts. The 2020 amendment to the Employment Prevention of Discrimination Act to include sexual orientation in its prohibited grounds for discrimination put the country a step closer to fulfilling its obligations to prevent all forms of discrimination, as outlined in the American Convention on Human Rights. But we also acknowledge that there is still work to be done to protect all individuals from discrimination in employment, as the revised Act does not include gender identity and expression as protected grounds. Canada commends the local human rights defenders who fought on the front lines, and so many of you are here, so I commend you myself for this, who fought on the front lines as litigants and lobbyists, often at great risk to their personal safety, to advance protections for LGBTQI+ persons in Barbados. Human rights are the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Your efforts are building a safer and more inclusive global community for all. Today, Barbados is at an important crossroads as it drafts a new constitution and charts its course as the world's newest republic. This constitution will reflect Barbadians' core values and Barbados' fundamental principles, which will define it as a nation free of its colonial ties. As a country with an increasingly significant voice on the world stage, Barbados' constitutional reform process and outcome undoubtedly will set an example to other CARICOM states and the wider global community. Canada was encouraged by Minister of Foreign Affairs Harry Simons' message at Barbados' Universal Periodic Review in Geneva earlier this month. Minister Simons both acknowledged the recent judicial ruling and also reaffirm the government's zero tolerance position for any form of violence or discrimination for anyone within its borders. Like many of you here, we look forward to the government's review of national legislation on LGBTQI+ issues as referenced in the minister's official statement. On this May 17th, we recall the fact that countless numbers of LGBTQI+ people across the globe continue to face persecution simply for being who they are. Canada remains committed to working in solidarity with other governments and civil society organizations towards the goal of ending discrimination and violence against LGBTQI+ persons and protecting the human rights of all people. Here in Barbados and throughout the Caribbean, via our public and private advocacy, Canada will continue to support gender equality and inclusive governance, which includes LGBTQI+ rights. I greatly look forward to this evening's discussions. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
All right, so we're moving straight ahead to our panel discussion segment. I have the great honor of introducing the members of the panel, and then I will follow with mentioning the name and a quick bio on our moderator. First on the panel, and if you can just raise your hand if you wish, just to identify who you are. We have our member of our community, Passion. Then we have our member, Paul Richards. Teresa Grant. And Alan Small. The moderator for this evening's discussion is going to be Dr. Nastasia Rembrandt. Dr. Nastasia is a queer Guyanese Barbadian researcher, writer, activist, and physician. Her research interests include the LGBTQ history, health, gender, climate justice, sexual reproductive rights, human rights, and HIV. Please give a hand for Dr. Nastasia.
Noting that all protocols have been observed, I say good evening, everyone. Good evening. So my pronouns, as you just heard, I'm Nastasia Rembrandt. My pronouns are she and her. And I could just give a little more background into the panelists that we're so honored to have in our presence this evening. Alan Zaye was born in 1966, was a UGLAB member for close to 8 years as a floor member, working to help promote safety and ensure a better community. Today, Alan decorates for parties, weddings, and all kinds of events. Paul is a founding member and treasurer of UGLAB at the height of the fight around HIV/AIDS, and will continue to be an advocate for his community as long as given strength to continue. Azizi Passion Ulisani, or Cream Passion, is a winner of several beauty pageants, including 2 Miss Barbados World Queens, an award-winning couple designer and flag person, and was also deputy chairman of the Constituency Council for City of Bridgetown, and established a reading club for children within Bridgetown community at the Salvation Army headquarters. So just before we start, just a little reminder to the panelists to use names with discretion. So unless it's something that that you could find in a public record, or you cleared with the person before, and if the person has passed, then you use your discretion with how openly out they were before, if you want to use their name. I will be using queer as an umbrella term, as well as LGBTQ+. For older members of our community, sometimes that could be a tricky proposition, but I've cleared that terminology with all the panelists today. And so we get started. Yes. So we have some pictures up in the background there. Sometimes you might be curious about it. I will, for the non-self-explanatory ones, I'll interject at some point to try and explain what they are. But we'll start, the first heading basically is climate around acceptance or tolerance before the HIV pandemic. So can any of the panelists tell me who are some of the queer persons you remember in community growing up?
Nice to be here. I feel very honored. I'd like to say, first of all, one of our team members died yesterday, so I would like to send condolences to his family and all of his friends. Instead of that, he was a vital part of our community, and he's been long involved in fights for everything concerning gay rights. So we hope he rests in peace. However, what we are going through now, what we are seeing now, this fight started long before us. I'm 66 years old now. And when we came along, there were guys before us. They didn't have the resources that we have now. They didn't have the backing. They didn't have the support from other people, but they were very fierce. And they defended each other. And as the younger ones come along, they kind of mothered us and, showed us things that we should do and learn and how to protect ourselves and how to respond to aggravation and all these kind of things. And in those days, the gays were very, very fierce. If you interfere with them, you know they will retaliate. But I call those the Camelot years. Because in those days, everybody had a boyfriend. And everybody lived together in a house. As like how we have a common law wife now situation. We lived in a house with our boyfriends who took care of us and supported us. And it was fine with wherever you lived or with the neighbors. But then as generations changed and things crept into society, everything kind of changed, shifted. We keep fighting, hold on a moment. We keep fighting and we are waiting to see the finish line. But as we go more and more, it's like the finish line is going further. So I'm hoping that a change will come where we can see that finish line and try to get close to it as possible. That's my view.
Thank you, Passion.
If you forget one thing, thanks for the panel, and thank God to make me at this age so that I can come up today, but it's something new to me. I just can't handle the crowd. I'm trying my best to handle the crowd. I'm not a crowd person. I'm a simple person, and I live my life simple. But as Passion said, there's some boyfriends. Boyfriends just beat me right about them. We got to get some blows in our lives to make me understand that we are still in the land of the living. It's very nice, please, put it hard. We in fact come a very long way. From the 60s to the 70s, we come along, so we live, we eat, we drink, we understand each other. In this time now, people don't understand each other. We don't have the love in it anymore. The love gone, we're gone. And we try to get that love, but it's so difficult for love to come back into the gay community. Very, very hard. Don't matter how we speak, how much we say, how much we do, it's so difficult for love to come back. And I don't think it can come back at this time.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
So this is a real gap. This is what I had in mind. I'm also learning stuff as we're going along as well. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask later on too, like what are some of the good and bad interactions? And I think you just highlighted some of that, right? The good and the bad. There was, I don't know what happened to the PowerPoint, but there was a black and white picture that if you could see, it said Queen Robert. Yes, so that is the infamous, well, famous, I don't call it infamous, famous Queen of the Bees pageant that used to happen back in the day. And Passion is going to tell us more about that now. But we've been hearing about this pageant for so long, us, the younger set, and we just never, heard a lot of things, but we didn't have any quote-unquote proof of it. That was the first time I actually got a newspaper clipping that showed that, yes, people are making up stories. This is something that really happened. And Robert was the winner for 1976. So please tell us some more about this.
Okay, first of all, let me say to you all, in those days, we had prime ministers, well, all the prime ministers really tolerated us. And when we put on a pageant, some of them would even show up. We would have our pictures plastered all over Bridgetown. And there was this store owned by the name of Mr. Henry Wilson, he's passed now. And we would have our pictures there, and people would be like very hyped about that. And the place would be so packed, you could have standing room only. And I had 5 of them. So I just had to pull myself out. In 1976, I was Miss Canada. And when I won, my picture was splashed across the front page, in the middle pages, in the back pages, it was all over me. Then the Christian Society of Barbados got on board, and they raved me over the coals. However, I was more popular than the independent screen of that year. And I think the nation newspaper owes me because I sold all their papers. And I felt honored and I felt proud. Scared of my dad really, but I was enjoying it. I had loved the attention I was getting. I loved the fact that I was the queen, and it was an honor for me because I was never one to hide. I always knew who I was, who I am, and I wish that everybody else would be like that. I don't think that we have to live in this fear and this criticisms that people throw at us and things like that. It's real. However, I think you have to conduct yourself in a certain manner. Sometimes you want things done, so you've got to support the people too, who are in a position to help you. Right now, the gays of today, they have so much avenues of acceptance for them. Not enough, not all together, but we're hoping. And I've been given a lot of opportunities that a lot of gays didn't have. And I always stood up for them, because when I came along, the older guys in my community, they like kind of covered me, and they would say, well, you know, you're going to be a leader, right? I don't necessarily want to be a leader, but I want to see things done right way. I want to see fights for the gay people, not physical fights, but firm fights, and I want to hear that we can go to the Prime Minister, and we can go to the President, and say, well, this is our story, this is our problem. I want to see a great gay parade with all the ambassadors and the president and everybody's coming in the parade. And let me know it's not so vulgar and degrading. It's about our lives. And in times to come, well, hopefully some of them will have gay sons and daughters, and it might soften their hearts and their perspective about where they should go with their decision making and stuff like that. I've been fortunate to hold positions in a government who was not fully behind gays, but they gave me a break. And I have been privileged to know prime ministers personally who were great people and who helped me and who accepted me. And like I said, I want that for every young gay, not only in Barbados, but throughout the whole Caribbean. When I read about what's going on in Uganda and things, it saddens me because we don't have a network like how people fight for seals to be alive. A seal is a mammal, and we fight to keep them alive. We have a whole rainbow coalition here. We should be going to people and saying, well, you know, you can't do this or you shouldn't do this, and make rights a priority for us. Even the transgender, I don't want to be a transgender. I never had a desire to be, but I'm with them all the way. I will fight side by side with them for their rights. You understand? As long as you're gay and you fight for one, you fight for all. We ain't leaving nobody behind. That's my take on that.
Thank you for that. Does anybody else want to share any other memories of pageants that they remember?
Yeah.
Go through.
Yeah, me and Passion they did the same show. Well, look at me. When it lights out me. But I look better than her in my skin. When it was in the paper, she spoke about the paper, but I was in the paper as well. And I look much better than her. One lovely thing about this there, when I put on my dress, I had to borrow a bit from someone else. When I start to look nice, they come and say, I'm in my wig. I fall apart then, so I was scrambling looking for a wig to put on. That was one of the best times in our life when we placed in Barbie, so it was about the best times we ever had.
Thank you.
My memory of the the Queen shows and so on. Remembering reading about the Queen show in the Globe Cinema. It was a big thing, it was a huge thing. And I think I do remember Passion being plastered all over the papers and so on.
No, I found
My other memory was climbing up into a tree to watch a Queen show inside of the pot, the pepper pot, which is in Dover, in St. Lawrence Gap. St. Lawrence, not St. Lawrence Gap, St. Lawrence. Climbing to see what is going on and being amazed to seeing people dress. And the thing that taught me about this is that this was long before the coming of HIV, before the coming of the transphobia. And we are now existing like if this is something new. This is not anything new. I am 60 years old. And I saw this when I was young. And we keep on saying that this is something new. It's not new. It's something that we've been going on for years. And it's time we come to grips with it. It's time we can realize that everybody has a right to live their lives without discrimination, without fear. And this is what it is.
So thank you all. So recently, we would have definitely been aware of Black person, Didi Winston, who's made a lot of news, flagged with award-winning Black person. But what was Kokomo like before, like the 90s? I've heard rumors of a band that was specifically geared towards LGBTQ persons or led by LGBTQ persons. Can you confirm or deny these rumors?
I'm guilty. When Kokomo first started in Barbados, I was there. And when we got to the stadium, there was a lady by the name of Philippa Tomlin. She was offering also. And when I saw her costume, I didn't cry. No, I didn't hide myself because we had no money. We made costumes from everything that we could find. Whether somebody had to give away or throw it, we used it. We went to Mr. Wilson and we got a box from him that had all pieces of fabric that didn't sell, and we used all of that. However, I went back to the stadium about 4 times or 5 times after that, and they never ever gave me a single prize. Then as I was about to give up, I was crying. My mother said, you have to stop with this foolishness because every year you go there and you get that. And I was getting better all the time because I was very artistic and I thank God for that. However, a gentleman out of the kindness of his heart decided to give me some money to start doing stuff. And then all the other band leaders realized, this kid is not giving up. This child is not going anywhere. And as these people will tell you, I had the float parades, I had Katie's costume, I won the King of the Carnival, I had individuals who won everything. I got so many prizes. One year I got so many prizes I was scared. I thought they made a mistake. NCF had even given me a prize for $600 as a special prize. Up to this day, I don't know what it was for. I think you know what? You have to give him. And I come to their meetings as me. I am not putting on no tight shirt and no fake mustache and stuff. I'm not really. You take me as I am. I go to the president of this place, I go to the manager of that place, or whoever. I said, that's me, that's who I am, this is what I want. And I got it. And I went into the proposal. So then I decided, stand for this. A lady who saw me and said I should go to America because I was sewing for a pageant at the Defense Force. And there were 4 girls who wanted me to sew for them. And I sewed for all 4, brought home 3. So this lady was gonna crucify me after the pageant, and she said, I need to see you. You need to go to America. And I honor her to this day. And NCF, they helped me a lot. And I decided, I'm not giving up. However, years has passed, awards have been given out, trophies have been given out. People who came to Krakow after me had received honors and stuff like that. Problem number two, I was even belonging to the government of the power in that time. And they didn't even see fit to say, well, you know, what's wrong with him? Is he invisible? No, it's because of my flamboyance, which I will not hide or deny to nobody. You know, they always say that people like to judge you and God will judge you. I'll take my chances with God. Let him judge me. I don't care what nobody says. I'm not turning back, I'm not coming. Once upon a time, my band then got this stigma. Oh, it's an awful word, it's a B word, but they would say, look, I'm coming. But you know what? Everybody waited to see this band and the people in this band. You understand? Even once, me and this Teresa here had a ring down battle. I gave him some paper, I told him I want him to come in a jumpsuit. When Teresa arrived at the stadium, Teresa had on this coat, shoulder dress, this like band. I said, there goes the prizes now. But you know, there were people there and there were some people on the judging panel who said, you know what? We favor you this time. And we're gonna accept you. And I'm like, so I'm not letting nothing deter me. If I ever decide to run after politicians again or befriend politicians, because I had helped a politician before, and I worked really hard for him, I took abuse for him, all kind of stuff. When he got elected to parliament, he's the guy that could wake me up out of my bed and say, you know what, Passion, I need a pants down, I need a shirt pressed, all this kind of stuff, and I will do it. And then I had a good rapport with the Indian community because I grew up around a lot of Indians and Caucasian people, so I was well known and respected by them. And when he got to parliament, what was the first thing he did? He wants to know who are homosexual, what they do in the bedroom, and all this kind of stuff. But I drew the line there. Then we had a meeting at a prestigious school here one time, and when I got there, he didn't know what to expect from me. So I just sort of made it clear, I will never, ever support you in anything. And as long as you're running for the constituency that I am in, you will not go back to parliament. That is not what we sent you there for. We sent you there to see how you can help the people of the community, including the gay and lesbian people. That time, transgenders wasn't as bold as not. As a matter of fact, we didn't even know anything about transgenders at that time. But I'm only showing you, if we have the right people in the right positions, and we talk to them, because we need to go and tell them our stories. We need to go to a church and say, well, okay, look, next week is Gay Pride Week. We want to have a service Sunday morning for all the gay people. They are going to come as themselves. So don't pretend that you're surprised and shocked when you see them coming, right? We have some senators in this country, and we have lots of reverends and men of the cloth. When are they going to come to the district and say, you know what? I want the gay people to come to my church. They want to come to church too, but they want to come to church as themselves. Because you can't fool God. And most of the congregation, you can't fool them right, because by the time you step through the door, they can fetch it in and pull in and, you know, say, all the truths are here. You understand? I love politics when I was young. And I always said, well, if I'm gay and I attach myself to these politicians, I can help my gay friends. We can get this achieved and we can get that achieved and stuff. I tried. I really tried.
Thank you, Passion.
Thank you.
So you heard it here, folks. We were there from the beginning, the very first crop over. And we've had some victories and some betrayals.
Yeah.
So moving on to a little bit more somber topic. We're going to talk about the HIV epidemic years, as well as the UGLAB. UGLAB is an abbreviation for United Gays and Lesbians Against AIDS Barbados. So can maybe Paul, some of the former members of UGLAB, tell us, how did UGLAB come about and what were the early days like?
This was a really troubling period. We were watching members of our community pass away. They were abandoned, they were put out of their homes. They were ostracized. They were vilified. it was a really troubling time for us in this community. We had a great leader by the name of Darcy there. And I know Darcy will not mind his name being mentioned in this forum because he is very forthright in his achievements, in his get up and go for what is needed. He had established a shop in Sutter Street. And it was what we would call right now a safe space for us to be. The community around the shop, there was hardly any bad vibe in that area around the shop. Most of the vibe that would come around that place would be from outsiders. So this was a pretty safe place for us. Darcy decided that we needed to come together as a group and do something about it, about what's going on, how things are happening. We came together in that shop. We were discussing how we would proceed and so on. Over the months and so on, we go into planning how this group can form, what we are going to do, our charter, and so on. And in about 1999, I think it was, we had come together as a group, as a core, with Darcy as the president of the group. We then took our constitution and so on and carried it to the government. We attempted to get our NGO status. There was one roadblock in our way. That person had a position in government that we had to break through if we were going to get our NGO status. It took almost 2 years for us to get that status. And it only came about after Darcy decided that we were going to write a letter to the then Prime Minister. Because only his word could get that person to move from their position where they do not think that our group had a right to exist. When that group was finally formed, we moved into the hospitals. We actually took over the HIV ward in the hospital. We actually took over the HIV ward in the hospital. And we did not cater to just the gay people who were in the hospital. We catered to everyone who was there. We bathed them, we wiped them down, we cleaned them, we did everything they needed for our time that we were in the hospital. At that time, we were losing so many people, so many people. We were losing people that were well known, and we were losing people that were not so well known. We didn't have the resources to really deal with some of the things that we encountered. Fortunately, some of us had family who, in spite of the rejection, would bury us. It was a really trying time, and that is where the groundwork and things began for development. We've had probably a membership of about 30 people at that time. So we used to pull our resources together, which was a match. But whatever we could contribute was what guided us and how we worked. We tried to provide shelter, we tried to provide food, we tried to provide everything, essential things that we could get, so that people could have some sort of dignity left. We had a lot of people on the road who could not be provided for. And we were very glad when we finally actually got our NGO status where we could access funding from other entities where we could do more than what we could have done on our own. Because we existed mostly on our own up to that point. In other words, I would pull things from my pocket. Darcy would pull things from her shop. The other members would pull things from wherever they could get them. Wherever donations or whatever contacts they got, they would get something from them and bring the pool together so that we were able to, you know, give baskets to people who were in distress. I remember I don't like to boast about myself. We started giving out condoms in the areas where the guys would be doing their business. But I didn't just stick to one group. I went to the girls who were working the street. I went to the guys who were working on the beach. We included everybody in our work. But it was something we had to fight for. It was like a physical battle to fight for this. I also remember when we would get people who there were no medication here in Barbados. There was no medication around here. We would probably get some people who had medication in places like Canada and the United States, send medication to us so that we'd be able to give out to whom we can. I remember when the medication first came here, it was about the QEH. We had hundreds of people who was infected with HIV, and nobody was getting medication. For almost a year, that medication was sitting on at the QEH. Nobody was getting medication. It took a letter from Uganda, hand delivered by DD, to get our medication released. That's what it took to get our medication released. Then Darcy heard, again, I can say, believe me, Darcy is a leader. Darcy, through the grapevine, heard about this medication. And he pushed to have that medication released. It was crazy. It was really a battle to even get any funding at all to fight in this battle against HIV.
Thank you so much,
There's
Paul.
something a little bit down on it. I think it's started out either 83 to 84 to 82. And when it first started, it was like a hurricane in Barbados. And I can remember I was going up Westbury Road, walking, going by some friends, and some young boys was coming down. And then you hear all those boys take off. All of the AIDS coming, I mean, it was terrifying. I went into the house where I was going, and I never came back up till about 5 o'clock the night, 1 o'clock. And I went home. I said, Lord, this is what we got to go through in this life. And I stayed in the house for a few days without even coming out, because it started to play upon my nerves. And this lady, I make clothes as well, and this lady bring her 2 daughters for me to get something made. And she said, Teresa, my daughters want to lay down your bed. Couldn't lay down the bed? I said, sure. And they went in the bed and lay down. And that changed my whole spirit, to a lovely spirit. I said to myself when they leave, if this lady got money, people don't have money, trying to insult me and insult the gay community, no. I push all that behind me and I start walking all about. It was really, really tough. I could understand a lot of people still don't want nobody to know who they are, what it does. But you've got to earn people before you open your mouth and say things that will affect other people and make people down feeling bad. This thing is a really, really serious thing. It's not trying to catch it quick, but when it's going to catch it quick, because people still, they're frightened to come out. People still frightened to come by you don't want it. I don't go by people and use a glass nor a fork nor a spoon, because I always got in my mind what people are thinking, and I'm thinking ahead of them. I bet whenever I don't want to use the bathroom, I don't want to use nothing. When I get home, I can do all of that at home. That is how it's got me, how we got to think. How you got to think about other people before you think about yourself.
Thank you, Teresa.
I just wanted to add to that Darcy Dare deserves special mention.
Agreed.
When he called me to be a part of the event, I was very hesitant. We got heads on a lot of topics. But he had some women, I call them women because they were quite the little ladies who just dressed up and go shopping. They were women who had backbone. These women were not gay. They were just friends of the gay people. There was a doctor, a senior nurse, Lillian Waterman. There was Angela McCary. There was the fierce Amazon leader of the women's group. Her name was Shade Leon Forbes. And they kind of dragged me into this. And when I got there, I realized, you know what, he's doing something really good. But he wasn't getting the help that he needed, even from the gay community. Because I think we were a little segregated at that time. The guys who wear the mustache and the tight pants are not talking to the guys who wear the all black and the heels. The ones who wear in the heels and pants are not speaking to the guys who work in the offices in the daytime, and yet they still come around in the evenings and stuff. So we were kind of segregated. He tried to pull them together. He tried really, really hard. However, he made so much strides. He even one day, he said, you know, Pastor, I'm going to send you to the course. I said, course in what now? He said, we bring a lady from London, and she's going to teach you to resuscitate persons in the airport, any place they fell down. You can just go and bust that glass and take care of these people. And I was so honored, and by that, and I said, you know what, I'm not even upset with that. Then when he brought the Trinidadians and the Guyanese and all these other gay guys for a big pageant in Barbados, I threw a big party for them all. We had all these fierce women in attendance, and I honored them with crowns because I think they deserved that. And I called it a bridge because a guy had won a pageant in Barbados and he felt like we didn't appreciate him winning on our turf and stuff like that. And I told them that, you know, I had a lot of connections to Trinidad. I had a lot of, we all did. And I had this fall. Then after that was so fun, I said, you know, let me keep a day of all the honor to the gay people because nobody else ain't giving them nothing.
I'm so sorry, Queen Passion, but I have to interrupt because I've been told that we need to wrap it up.
Okay.
We unfortunately need to cut it short because we started quite late. But as you can see, there are so many more stories we need to tell each other and we need to talk about. And it needs to be acknowledged that there isn't any cisgender, lesbian, or bisexual representation, bisexual women's representation on the panel today. That is because of some scheduling conflicts. They're quite fitted, so that's another thing for us to keep in mind to address in the future. But it was amazing. I learned so much. And just before we have to zoom out, just really brief, like super brief question session. And I was told that Dr. Ronnie Yearwood would like to get us started.
Well, what I would want to say, and I guess I'm wearing two hats: my academic legal hat and my hat as leader of the Democratic Labour Party, is that this was a session for me to learn so much and to understand the experiences from the community. I use this term willingly, that I consider myself an ally. Family adjacent is what the term that I am familiar with, and you know, I would say as leader, that's my leader hat on. You know, we pledge support to facilitating the democratization of rights for all persons, and to ensure that there are safe spaces for everyone to live and to share and to live out the lives that they want to live out in the fullness of themselves, because that is what I was able to gather here from you. And I guess for me, my question would be, how do you see, I know you talked about politics and you have your wariness of politicians, so I would say don't see me as a politician, because I don't like the term either. I am just someone who happens to be in a political space, who happens to lead a political party. But how do you think you can build? I mean, how do you think you can build more alliances with not necessarily politicians, but persons within the policy-making spaces that can drive the agenda? Because I think that's what you were alluding to, creating the alliances.
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
And I will march boldly up to your place, your headquarters, because I'm very familiar with that place.
Yeah, yeah.
And we will talk about having a sit down
Yeah.
with the gay people. I mean, the umbrella body.
Yeah.
And we will see how we can work on it, how you're going to help us. Because if you're the new Moses, we're going to follow you.
Okay.
So I'll call you to that.
Oh, understood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other question? Burning question.
You're not scared?
No? In that case, yes, our panelists will be around at the end if you wanted to have a one-on-one, you know. But with that, thank you again so much. And I'll hand you over back to Derek.
So, the final thing on our agenda for tonight is our vote of thanks. It's going to be given by Luke Lascaris. He is the Crop-Over Ambassador and member of the Constitutional Reform Coalition. Mr. Lascaris.
Excellencies, colleagues and friends, my heartfelt thanks go out to all those who have given their time, energy, and support to Equals as we work to change the society, our legal landscape, and our political landscape, and the framework of Barbadian society. I also want to thank all the people who have come out in person and those who have joined us virtually. I also want to thank the queer people who have come before us, who have given their time, who have paved the way for us, and have set the foundation for us to move forward. I want to thank our partners, those are our external partners, who have provided the requisite feedback and the necessary support to help us continue our work in supporting and assisting vulnerable and disenfranchised communities and people in and across Barbados. I also want to thank our coalition, because our Constitutional Reform Coalition, a group of people who have come together and offered timeless work, have offered yeoman service, and have given thankless hours towards changing the Barbadian society and changing the Barbadian framework and infrastructure. On this day of this International Day against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia, we look toward the future of this young republic. Though we have inherited a society burdened by homophobia from our former British colonial masters, it is important for us as confirmed cross people of our faith to be able to determine our direction forward. As a people, and as a community, and as a society, it is incumbent on us to be able to decide where our future lies and what direction it is that we should go in. It is neither a straightforward nor an easy path, but it's a task that we must put our hands to the plow and make sure to give our best work for. As Barbados undergoes constitutional reform, it is up to us as Barbadians to make sure our voices are heard and that we are represented in the new constitution of the Republic of Barbados. As we look forward to the future of the Republic, we must continue to make concrete steps to ensure that the rights of all Barbadians are protected regardless of their sexuality or sexual identity. We must look to the future of Barbados where everyone is safe, everyone is included, and everyone is protected and equal in the eyes of the law. We must be free from all forms of discrimination, and we must be free to decide what it is that we want to do with our lives. The fight for this future of Barbados is far from over, and our problems are not insurmountable. We have been given an unprecedented opportunity to help rewrite the Constitution in a bold and radical way, a way that demands urgency, steadfastness, and support from all our partners. We are all in this fight together as we look to shape a better Barbados. Human rights was not a concern in the framing of our initial and our former Constitution, but it needs to be the foundation of the Constitution of our Republic. As we put pressure on our government and lobby for positive change to create a safer and a more inclusive Constitution, we look forward to your continued support and feedback during this time. Working together to achieve so much, and with your continued cooperation, we believe we can achieve much more and have a positive transformational impact. This International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia is ending, but this is the start for our work. We look forward to having more conversations, more dialogue, more feedback, and more support from our partners and other people within society. We are committed to the path that we are on, and we believe that with our partners by our side, we can accomplish our objectives with regard to constitutional reform and come one step closer to transform the hearts and minds of Barbadians. Once again, we want to thank those who have come before us, and we look forward to one day eliminating the scourge of homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia in Barbadian society. Thank you very much.
If any of you have any thoughts or anything that you would like to share, maybe something that you've learned, or maybe even something you wish to action that you wish to share with the audience, I would love to have anyone essentially share their point.
I just wanted to say how much I appreciated this today. We've been working with a lot of the organizations for over the years, and we know a lot of familiar faces, but I especially appreciated hearing the historical background of this sort of movement and fight. And so thank you so much. I appreciated it a lot. Thank you.
Can I say something as well? Back in the day when we were of UNDP, the Canadian government was one of our champions. And I'm glad to see that this camaraderie is still there. Thank you very, very much.
This lady there, go to her. Let's have a kind of discussion, brainstorming on, what comes next. We have done some work, there is more to do. How do we do this together? Rihanna is going to be ready to collect those ideas and hopefully do some more work.
I'm one of the co-founders of it. And it was actually Darcy that helped and said, well, you have to do this, but that's him, you found it, So I think we actually don't celebrate or commemorate Darcy enough, and we have to do something for that as a community. That's very important. When you spoke about Darcy earlier, I had so much memories. So again, thank you to you all, and thank you for reminding me also.
And thank you to everyone on the panel I know. Passion, and especially Teresa. Passion is my designer in anything that I want, if I want to look different or anything. I grew up in the age of the queers. You would call them the wrong words, but I grew up in that age. My mom, at the time when they had HIV and stuff like that, my mom would be nervous every weekend because she would say one of her friends just died. I say that because it's not that we don't know how to do acceptance, but I think what we have to do is not to judge people for who they are, but to accept people for who they are. So I grew up in the age of acceptance. I never knew who you were, what you were doing, and stuff like that. I just knew that they were queer. I know when they had the HIV, and our best friend, Gabby, sang the song where everybody's name was on the list, right? And at that particular time, it was a very, very difficult time in me as a younger person, hearing that these people were dying and stuff like that. But passion for sure is some person that I think that have done so much for this society and the community in Barbados, but never got recognition. I was just talking to my husband about it, and he said, you know what, not knocking anyone else on the panel, but because it's a personal relationship between myself and a gay person, that is just a mutual relationship and nothing else other than a mutual relationship. Because he would cuss me right and right out, you know. But for me to be here, he told me that he was speaking at this panel, and I said, I need to come and support you. And I think it was very informative. It's very different for me to be here and hearing it from his perspective and everybody else on the panel. So maybe what we need to do is just to open ourselves to be acceptance. One time you told me, when you died, it'll be a big funeral for you, then the place to be there. And that's because of acceptance. Acceptance in the sense that don't judge, let God do that. And just accept everyone for who they are. Don't ask them the business, because nobody can come to me and ask me who any of them are. I don't know. It has nothing to do with acceptance.
We all will just clap, try to enjoy the moment, what we say, what we do not say. But if we don't put love into this, we will get nowhere. We can talk all cows come down. But see, love, as we go through that door, some of you will want to speak to us. And I understand it, and I get to realize it. I bet who bet me. I'm gay for years. And in the gay community, it is so confused and so corrupt with each other. No, I gotta speak the truth. We come to speak the truth. We can sit on talk here, but when we get up there, we don't say nothing to each other. We pass one another straight on the streets and don't look in one another direction. I don't care. God, I mean God. God got me to judge. I belong to a church. The Reverend respect me. The congregation respect me. And I appreciate myself for that. I will go between the straight people before I go much gay people, because I know the gay people don't love one another. I didn't sit down here and play one be friendly because the gay people don't love one another. Simple as that. Do not love the one another. If you do love the one another, a lot of things will happen, because it always says, when one gay person is sick and the other one said it's not sick, or we could join together, get some money, get somewhere for them to live, make sure that they're happy. But you know what? We get to criticize, pull them down to the gutter. Oh, that's what things we do between one another. We come and talk big talk, but I would talk in reality, because it is reality. And we need to face reality at this stage. Okay, people need to come together with one another before other straight people come to fight for we. We should be fighting for ourselves, then let somebody fight for us. Thank you.
So one thing that was mentioned by Passion was the knowledge being passed down through the generations. And while Randy was speaking, Randy was actually one of the persons who mentored me, who was mentored by Darcy. As you said, the mentorship kept going and kept going. So through that, with equals and stuff, we had actually decided to start that with just small little meetings that really kind of got people together to create that camaraderie. Because I had heard of all the different issues that person would have had before, so I was like, you know what, this cannot happen in our generation. So because of that, we were able to actually do something about that. So for me, equals was something that was created where the E would stand for empowerment. E would represent empowerment of all persons, Q for the equality of the time spent together, U for the unity of the community, A for acceptance of yourself and others, L for love to give to others and yourself, F, S for the represent the strength of we all needed to be strong.